Good luck getting groups as a Fury Warrior. That's something I heard before I even hit level 70 in TBC Anniversary. And honestly, the more I've played, the more I realize there's actually a huge stigma against certain classes in TBC. People look at the class and instantly think, why bring a warrior when I could bring a warlock, hunter, mage, or literally any other class with more utility? And it doesn't even stop there. Even tanks seem to be disappearing. You sit and looking for group for 30 minutes trying to find a tank for a heroic. Meanwhile, the second a paladin tank types LFG, they get 15 whispers instantly, which has led to a huge discussion. Should Blizzard actually step in and make changes, or should they just let the TBC meta play out naturally? Now, one thing I've noticed in TBC is that players are way more meta-focused than they were back in 2021's iteration of TBC, even more so than 2007 for this matter. People were less knowledgeable about the game back then, and people just brought whoever was available. But now everybody knows optimal comps, everybody watches tier lists, everybody looks at logs, everybody wants the smoothest possible heroic run, and unfortunately, warriors are one of the classes getting hit hardest by that mentality, especially Fury Warriors. Because when players are building dungeon groups, they aren't asking, can this class clear the content? They're asking what class clears this the fastest and the easiest, and that's where the stigma starts. Because Fury Warriors don't really bring the same utility other classes bring. Warlocks bring insane AoE, summons, fears, hunters bring traps and misdirect, mages bring a lot of crowd control, they also bring water, shamans bring bloodlust, rogues bring interrupts and control. Meanwhile, Fury Warriors are mostly seen as the DPS that has no utility, mostly just zug. So people would immediately assume, why would I take a warrior? And the crazy part is, even before hitting 70, I had viewers in stream telling me, good luck finding groups, good luck completing your attunements. That's how deep this perception already is running in the community. I even have people asking me in streams, should I play warrior? And I always tell everybody this, that you should be able to play whatever class that you want. It's World of Warcraft, it's an MMO, you're supposed to get lost in fantasy. You shouldn't let meta dictate whether or not you have fun, but the reality is, this is the third iteration of TBC, the content is solved, optimization and efficiency are constantly on people's mind now instead of just playing whatever they feel like. And because of that, you're gonna run into situations where groups don't want to take you because you play a specific class. And honestly, it gets even worse when it comes to tanks, because trying to find tanks in TBC right now can feel miserable, especially for heroics. You'll see groups sitting there forever looking for one more tank, heroic Mechanar, looking for tank, heroic Shattered Hull, looking for tank, heroic Arcatraz, and nobody joins. Meanwhile, DPS players are stacked everywhere. Honestly, it's gotten so bad that sometimes LFG feels like a ghost town for tanks. You know, I've literally sat there using the Who tab, filtering level 70 paladins, warriors, druids, just spam whispering people, hey, want to tank heroic slave pens. It genuinely starts feeling like a telemarketing job where I'm cold calling other players just to play the game, and half the time the response is, sorry, I'm a different spec, or yeah, I tank, but only for gold. That's why the dungeon scene in TBC feels kind of rough right now. And first off, tank gameplay in TBC can feel pretty stressful compared to later expansions. You know, threat matters way more, pulls are dangerous, crowd control matters, one bad pull can wipe the group instantly, and if something goes wrong, guess who gets blamed? The tank. The tank slightly under avoidance cap? Blamed. Tank loses threat to Warlock blasting seed? Blamed. Tank pulls too slowly? Blamed. And after all that, you're also paying massive repair bills, especially if you're a plate tank. There's also a lot of pressure on newer tanks. A lot of gear tanks already have their guilds and routines established, so newer players are trying to step up and fill the void, but then they get hit with constant pressure because their gear isn't good enough yet, which honestly just contributes even more to the tank shortage. I myself even tried tanking heroic Shadow Labs on my warrior with some off pieces from Kara and some resilience pieces from the vendors because no one wanted to tank or wanted a Fury Warrior, and honestly, I struggled hard to the point where it genuinely pushed me away from wanting to tank again. So overall, it does feel like players eventually start avoiding the role altogether just to avoid the harassment. It turns into a lot of people looking at tanking and thinking, why am I doing all this work just to get yelled at? And this is also why you're seeing tanks charge gold for heroic runs, which is, you know, a controversial topic in itself. Some people hate it. Some people think it ruins the social aspect of the game. But if you think about it from the tank's perspective, they're in insanely high demand. They deal with stress. They deal with the repair cost. They deal with the impatient DPS players. Meanwhile, they can instantly get groups whenever they want. So tanks start realizing, you know, as few as they are, why not make gold from this? And honestly, that alone shows how bad the tank situation has gotten in TBC, when players would rather pay gold for a tank, or the tank themselves charge gold and, you know, have everybody sit in LFG for another 45 minutes. You know, there's a real problem. And then there's the elephant in the room, Prot Paladins. Because let's be honest, Paladins absolutely dominate TBC heroic dungeons. It's mostly comes down to AoE threat. Heroic dungeons in TBC are filled with dangerous trash packs, multiple mobs, caster mobs, constant AoE situations, and paladins handle this so much easier than warriors. Consecration alone makes dungeon tanking feel smoother. Meanwhile, warrior tanks are tab targeting like their life depends on it, trying to hold threat while DPS top the meters. And because players know this, groups naturally lean towards paladin tanks, which then creates another issue in relation to the stigma. Players prefer a paladin tank over a warrior tank. Why struggle harder when I don't have to? That's the mindset a lot of players end up having. This all brings up a big question. Should Blizzard actually make changes to TBC Anniversary? And honestly, I think there's arguments both ways, because part of Classic WoW's identity is class imbalance. Not every class is equal. Not every spec is amazing. And some people would argue that changing class identity ruins the authenticity of a classic version of the game. But TBC Anniversary also isn't the OG original 2007 or even 2021's iteration of TBC anymore. Players are different, the meta is solved, everything is optimized, and because of that, weaker specs get punished way harder socially than they used to. You know, for me personally, I don't think certain classes need massive changes just to suddenly become OP, but should small quality of life improvements be made to help, especially for tanks. You know, maybe something simple like tank and healers getting reward bags similar to Wrath, where players are rewarded for filling high demand roles. Or should Blizzard do something more drastic, because there's talk in the community about giving warriors and druids stronger threat capabilities to better complete with paladins and heroics. Honestly, something simple like a reward bag alone could massively help the heroic dungeon scene right now, because at the end of the day, if nobody wants to tank, the entire dungeon ecosystem suffers. But what do you think? Have you noticed class stigma in TBC Anniversary? Do you think certain classes are unfairly judged? Do you think players are just following the meta? You know, what about tanks? Is there actually a tank crisis right now, or are players just exaggerating it? Should Blizzard make changes to help warrior and druid tanks, or should TBC stay exactly how it is? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more WoW content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh man, this is insane. There's so fucking many of them. Holy shit, dude. Oh, here they go. Dude, they came out like so fucking fast. Made a big mistake being first in line. Yeah.